No Randy Rainbow? The cabinet also?
Good? In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. tonight, Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Lewis, not here yet. Ms. Lieberberg?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Valieva?
Here.
Ms. Rambert?
Yes, here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 17th, 2018 Township Committee regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 17th, 2018 Township Committee special meeting minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? George is not here. All right, reports. Ms. Ball,
Okay. Shade Tree met. They discussed trees planting along Millburn Avenue and Essex Streets, being mindful of storefronts, overhead wires, and salt spreading from snow removal. Trees will start to be planted now. The soil is perfect due to all the rain. And Tom Doty can be contacted if you would like to know if a tree is scheduled to be planted at your portion of any town property in front of your house. I went to the joint fields just to talk about the pesticide control. That is, so the Environmental Commission Chair, Elizabeth, and I went, and we discussed the pesticide use on our town fields. And all pesticide control is governed by an IPM, is Integrated Pest Management. One issue is that town fields and school fields are regulated by different IPM standards. Fields are scheduled to be fertilized during school breaks with liquid fertilizer, and the plan for optimum fields is to aerate, overseed, and fertilize using pesticides only as needed. And the one request they made is on the Recreation website. There's a tab on the left for parks and facilities, and the treatment dates and details are provided. The Environmental Commission asked if this could be highlighted on the Recreation's main page, providing treatment schedule, and they should include the timing of applications, how long the field should be closed, and they should, in addition to flagging the fields, they should possibly put a sign up. Currently, all these emails are sent from the buildings and grounds to all the school principals. They will also give it to Nancy Dries, who will add notifications in the Friday newsletters of Miller Mail. And that's it. Thank you.
I also attended that. I'd just like to add that, no? Yeah.
Ms. Lieberman.
At the joint fields meeting, they also mentioned that they successfully completed the fencing at Glenwood, the topsoil replacement and irrigation system at the Washington School. The high school baseball field has been reclaimed and completed, and the safety netting at the high school is now also complete.
Do you have any reports?
Yes. Parking ad hoc. We met on Thursday, September 27th, discussed some issues. There's a short summary. Lot 8 across from the Short Hills train station, and Lot 12, which is the lot next to the Millburn Deli and Basilico. They're looking to repave them in 2009. MPay, as of November 1st, you will no longer need to keep a minimum of $25 in your wallet. On Election Day, we will have parking available on the library side of Glen Avenue with some signage for voters. The library lot gets quite busy. There's currently three districts that we're voting there, and this will help alleviate some of the parking congestion. We had discussed some sort of summer sticker for summer internships, for summer interns that are working in New York City at a designated lot other than the parking lots at the Millburn, the Short Hills train stations, to accommodate students on a limited basis, to grant them a spot for commuting, some sort of mid-May to June through Labor Day, so that's going to be discussed further. We also discussed reviewing the restricted parking for residents on Bodwell, Duncan, Blaine, and Rector, some kind of residence sticker to allow them to park in front of their own home during school day mornings. And last but not least, reviewing the current parking deck by the Millburn train station to make adjustments for business parking, shopper parking, and overflow commuter parking in the designated spots, to take some accurate counts, and reviewing the allocations to maximize usage for all parties. That completes my report.
Thank you. Mayor, can I ask her a question?
Sure.
The Church Street, apparently we've been getting emails, has a restriction on parking, and now there's the community garden. And so now people can't legally park at the community garden to garden. My husband happens to have a plot there, so I know, but is that something we can
We're
look
going to look
into?
on it, yes.
So seniors and anybody can get their flu shots on the 10th next week at the Bauer Center. I think I might go do that as well. The DMDA had a really nice day today at the farmer's market. For once, it didn't rain on a Tuesday, which we've had a lot of, and it seemed to be really bustling today. I was pleased to see that. We had an open mic about 10 days ago, and we had a roving accordion player playing in the restaurants. The DMDA is working on their audit. I know they're doing everything on schedule and as requested, so we appreciate their hard work. The marijuana committee, or marijuana research committee. There's some new news about that I saw, that we originally reported that if marijuana is legalized, we would have 360 days in which to opt out of allowing it in our town. Something I just read recently, that came across my desk, said that it would actually be 180 days. So that cuts it to half the time. So it's just something that we have to start being ready to engage our community and find out what, the people are interested or not. I really think it's time. I brought it up a few months ago. I think that if the period of time shrinks, I was just in court this evening on a marijuana charge for a client, and the prosecutor said, we don't know what's going on right now, we're sort of holding off, and they adjourned it. But so I think that it's imminent. So I do think that I'd like to hear what the community thinks, as well as the town committee. But a lot of other towns have prospectively, proactively banned or issued a resolution banning from their community when this happens. So again, I don't know what people want, but I think that we should start looking into it, because the time will come and it's nice to be ahead of something instead of reactive.
Which is why I raised it months ago.
Correct. So, again, if you want further study, Kit has been giving Jackie and I research on everything that has come to date.
There's a further amendment, which now says 180 days, plus it gives the Department of Community Affairs time to prepare regulations, and then at the end of that time period, you'd have 180 plus whatever the department takes to do the regulations. So, but we have an ordinance ready to go, depending upon what you decide.
If that's what you want. On the other hand, there's also something in this legislation that the municipality can get 2%. So there's money too to be considered. So again, just trying to give all aspects. Finally, 2 weeks ago, I talked about placemaking and how I wanted to follow up with, the efforts. And I understand Alex met with Elizabeth Murphy from, what is she, Public New Jersey?
Creative.
Creative New Jersey. and is willing to meet with 2 of us at a time. So whoever would like to next do that, I would hope that we would continue this. Last night was a good example of where we got a community together about an issue on Hobart and Highland. The intersection was something that a lot of residents were concerned, so I urged Alex to hold a public meeting, and he did, and it seemed like we had about 20 to 30 residents who really were speaking with Maurice, our consultant, and giving a lot of input. So that's an example of ways we can move forward. So if we have an issue we're blocked on, it seems like, which we've had, it really seems like we should. So I haven't heard from anybody since the past meeting that they're interested in meeting, but let me know if you are.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it? Good. So I'm going to suggest that we want to meet with Creative New Jersey, or those who haven't met with Creative New Jersey yet. Perhaps talk to Alex, and we can set something up. Great. Do you have any reports?
I do not.
Anyone, do you have any reports?
Oh,
No?
I'm sorry, I do have one. I just wanted to alert the committee and the public that the township did submit to FEMA for reimbursement on Winter Storm Quinn in the amount of $591,881 for our operations during that time, both emergency and debris removal. The reimbursement from FEMA would be 75%. We have gotten some word that the state of New Jersey as a whole may not meet the threshold to be reimbursed. So although we have submitted our application for public assistance, that does not necessarily mean that we will receive them. But if we do, and if the state does meet that threshold, we're already in line.
May I ask what determines the threshold?
It's a dollar figure throughout the entire state, based on damage.
Based on each community's portion?
A total, right. So every submission from the state. So for instance, with something that happened in Little Falls, flooding, things like that, because it's just one community that would not qualify for public assistance. And a larger storm like Winter Storm Quinn that affected multiple counties, multiple municipalities, has that potential, but there is a dollar threshold that it has to meet.
Welcome. Any reports?
No report.
I'm going to introduce Rob Walton, our representative from JCP&L, still.
Yes, still, a very timely lead-in from Alex, referring to the March 7th storm. Glad to brought that back up. So we serve 8,104 customers in Millburn Township, and we want to try to improve reliability for each and every one of them. The BPU created in December of 2017 what they call IIP, Infrastructure Investment Program, and it is a great mechanism that incentivizes all the utilities in the state to make significant investments in infrastructure, not just electric, not just JCP&L, but gas, water, sewer, and of course electric as well. We submitted to the Board of Public Utilities our plan in June of this year to do a series of infrastructure improvements. Coupled with that would be a slight rate increase, a rider, that would expire after 4 years. It would start at 49 cents per month in the first 6 months, and it would peak at $1.89 per month at the end of the 4-year program. Keep in mind, JCP&L has the lowest rates of all the electric utilities in the state. We also have a current rider to pay for Hurricane Sandy that will be expiring sometime in the next 2 years. That's a little more than the new rider we're asking for. So our customer rates won't be really drastically affected as we're describing. Coupled with natural gas keeping rates falling, we think the customers will not see that big of a rate increase. But the crux of the program is the reliability improvements. So there are 4 main programs. There is replacement of underground wire in certain parts of our service territory. That is not slated for Millburn Township. The parts that are slated for Millburn Township are increased tree trimming program, improvements to substation integrity, replacement and upgrades of certain fuses, as well as replacing some of our transformers in our service territory. So Millburn Township, we would replace on 5 different poles our breakers with trip savers. Trip savers are automatically closing circuit breakers. So in a normal situation, a tree limb or animal contact, or like today's motor vehicle accident, the trip would occur, the breaker would open, and the crew would have to come out, inspect the line, reclose the breaker, restoring power, or repair the downed wire, and then close the breaker. The majority of our outages are short duration events that do not necessarily require a repair. It's a tree limb falling on a wire and falling to the ground, it's an animal contact, or some other short in the system that causes a fault. The trip savers would open the breaker, turning off power, and then 30 seconds later would reclose, and if the tree limb or animal contact had fallen to the ground, the breaker would stay closed, keeping power intact for those customers. So it would not be 2 hours for a crew to come out, it would not be people calling in the outage. In fact, by the time you got the phone to call it in, power should be restored. We also are going to be putting up flood walls around the Canoe Brook flood substation. Canoe Brook serves some of the commercial entities out by the Short Hills Mall. That did flood during Irene. We have a temporary flood wall there now. We'll be adding a permanent flood wall there as well. One other improvement to mention, we would replace the fencing at the Millburn substation, make it more secure and hopefully more aesthetically pleasing with that fence. The other items that we will be adding into our infrastructure in Millburn will be replacing reclosers with smart reclosers. So currently there are a handful of reclosers in Millburn Township that operate just like the trip savers, except they serve a larger section of customers. Again, an outage occurs, the recloser sees the outage, it opens, a minute later it recloses, hence the term recloser, in the hopes that whatever caused the outage has gone away, power stays restored. Right now we have 3 of those that serve Millburn Township. We're replacing those with smart reclosers. The smart reclosers will send to us at our DCC, our Distribution Control Center, information that that recloser has tripped, and we will know if it stays tripped open. So we will know when that outage occurs instead of having to rely on our customers to call us in when they have an outage. This is the beginnings of creating a smart grid for our service territory. We also would install between the Short Hill substation and Academy substation what is called a recloser loop scheme. So you take these same reclosers, you put them together in series, and when one activates, others can close to narrow the scope of an outage. So let's say you had a carpool accident like you had today, 300 some odd customers lose power, the reclosers would see that, they begin to close, and you would reduce the scope of that outage from 300 down to say 30, and you immediately send the pole, it would happen within minutes as opposed to waiting for a crew to come out and rearrange the circuits to make this happen. Again, that's also the beginnings of a smart system. The increase to the pre-trimming standard that we have would be 3 things. One, we would do a more aggressive removal of hazard trees. Those are trees that have some sort of disease, decay, structural fault in it that we target for removal. We would increase our pursuit of those trees. We would also step up our removal of ash trees. Ash trees are affected by the emerald ash borer. It has moved its way from west to east. It is in New Jersey. It is in Essex County. So we would, more in earnest, seek to remove those trees. We try to remove them in the primary parts of our circuits, and so we would expand that to other parts of our circuits. Also, we would change the overhang standard in our circuits. So right now, we remove overhang in what we call zone 1. That's from the substation to the first circuit breaker. We would expand that for the remainder of the 3-phase part of the circuit. So the bulk of the main line of the circuit, we would remove the limbs that overhang those wires, which will reduce a lot of the tree-related outages. It will change the aesthetic to a certain degree, but it will certainly improve reliability greatly. So that's the bulk of the program. This is a BPU filing, public hearing November 13th. We are seeking public support via resolution, which you have on your agenda tonight for consideration or for discussion. You can write a letter, you can come in person to testify, or you can simply say, no raise my rates and do nothing. I would hope that you would come out and say, we want to see the improvement programs, we don't want to pay more for electricity, but we understand that you have to pay for what you ask for. I understand that you need to thread that needle between asking your constituents to pay more money and improving reliability, but we think that given the storms in March only highlighted the need for improving our system, this program that the BPU has created to incentivize increase in infrastructure really hit the mark because we do need to do more improvements to our infrastructure, and allowing the utilities to recapture that improved investment through a rate recognition mechanism will help it happen. Happy to answer any questions on this or anything else for that matter.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Walton? Go ahead.
I wonder, do you have a long-term plan for hardening your system to make it more resilient, to get the lines off of these poles, to go underground? I realize it would have to be a long-term program and it would be very capital intensive, but I just wonder if that, I represent a company in a number of states that's selling high molecular density tubing to the western states like crazy because they're putting this stuff underground, certainly in all new development, but even in some of the older areas. And I'm wondering if you have anything like that in the future for New Jersey.
We do have a long-term plan for improving our reliability. It would not be a plan to put the wires underground. The BPU released, following the March storms, March 2nd, March 7th, and March 22nd, 3 nor'easters in March. The March 22nd will not affect the northern part of the territory. It affected central Jersey. The BPU looked at our performance and all the utility performance during that storms, and they looked especially at underground wires for all of New Jersey. And the recent cost estimate is $3 million per mile. So take your rate, take your bill, multiply it by 4, and that's the foreseeable future. So, no, putting the wires underground is not really something we're considering near term or long term. What we do try to do is a couple different things. Reduce the causes of outages, trees being the number one cause that we can reduce. Animal contact, we try to put animal blood up where we have free animal contacts. The other thing we try to do is reduce the scope or the size of an outage and then reduce the duration. Reducing the scope means more circuit breakers. Reducing the duration is replacing those circuit breakers with automatically closing circuit breakers, like reclosers or script savers, which I'm describing in our IIP. So the better bang for your buck is to remove the cause of outages, which are trees and limbs, and then reduce the scope and time of outages, which are putting in these smart devices to limit the scope and duration of these outages. That's our strategy long term, is to put more of those devices into our system, make it a smarter system, a quicker responding system that reduces the amount of time our crews need to spend repairing things and the amount of time our customers are without lights.
So assuming that this gets approved, how long a period of time will it be for these changes to be made?
4 years.
4 years.
It's a 4-year program. We get the money in the 4-year period, we get to spend it in the 4-year period, and the BPU scrutinizes that weekly to make sure that every dollar we get goes to what we say we're going to be providing. And if we don't, then we don't get the rate increase.
And how do you plan in terms of what areas you do? When would, let's say, Millburn were on the map to have work done?
Sure.
Where are we in the scheme of things?
Hence on the device in the program. So some of the transformer replacements are in 2019, some of the substation upgrades are in 2020, some are in 2021, some are in 2022, and the tree trimming is depending on the substation throughout the 4-year period. Some of them will be in 2019, some of them will be in 2021, some will be in 2020. So each year there'll be different parts of this program implemented in Millburn Township. And that's true of all of our communities. Each tries to even out the work across the territory.
One more question, if I may.
Sure.
How do you coordinate this with our shade tree, as far as if the trees are property versus the town versus the county tree?
We send notification to the township 2 months and 2 weeks before we come into town to do trimming, which includes a list of streets on which will be trimmed. And the township can then share that with your shade tree commission. Tom, Jody, and I have looked at different trees and find the time. That's from how we coordinate and notify. We cannot remove a tree without the property owner's permission. So no matter how bad that tree may look or how likely it is to fall on the wires, if the property owner says we do not want it removed, we cannot remove it. If the Shade Tree Commission, we often do this with Tom, he will point out trees to us that are in need of removal, that are close to our lines, that he or his contractors cannot remove. And we will come in with them and either top the tree so that your contractors can remove the bottom of it, or we will remove it entirely. So we work closely with our Shade Tree Commissions, especially here in Millburn. Tom was a former KCO employee.
Oh,
He
I
knows the
that.
drill. So, yeah,
So 2 things, no eminent domain on trees,
correct.
and if that tree then causes damage to a whole electrical area, then, and you have given that person warning, like this tree should go, then what happens?
Nothing is the short answer. We remove the tree, we take away the brush, we leave behind the trunk because it's a storm. We don't remove the trunk during a storm. If it's our program trimming, we do remove the tree. We leave it behind, and it's just part of what's included in your rate. So one of the things that I'd like to be talking about during the storms is everybody else's trees are falling on our equipment, but we're the ones that take all the trees and plan on cleaning it up. That's just the nature of the business.
And last question, when you give Tom notice of 2 months and 2 weeks, do those streets and those residents get the same notice?
We go door to door
Oh, you do?
and log and talk to the residents whose street you want to remove, whose street you want to trim, yes. That, JCPL doesn't do, our contractor does that, our forestry contractor, our vegetation contractor.
Any other questions?
It's a four-year program. You mentioned 2019, 2020, 2021.
And then 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. I don't believe there are anything scheduled in Millburn Township in 2022. I believe everything's going to be completed by 2021. But we'll still be doing it in 2022. We also trim on a 4-year cycle, so that's about the time it takes to get to each one of our circuits for correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Consent agenda items, bills list to authorize refund of tax overpayments, to renew the contract for winter ski trips, and 2 raffle licenses, 1 for St. Rose of Lima and 1 for the Valley Fund. Are there any comments from the committee on the consent agenda items? No? Any comments from the public on consent agenda items? No? May I have a motion to approve the resolutions listed on the consent agenda items? So, may I, on the consent agenda, may I have a second?
Second.
A roll call, please.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Resolution 18223 is a resolution to support the JCP&L reliability plus what? Program, yes. Any comments, questions? You want to consider it? Make a motion to approve the resolution?
I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have, Mr. Lee is not here. So, shall I just do this thing? All right. Tonight is second reading for the ordinance to include in the DMDA additional properties that are now commercial properties that were not commercial properties. Thank you. All right. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2511-18, Ordinance Amending Ordinance 12-92, creating a special improvement district within the township to include certain property enumerated in section 3 thereof. That is block 1211, lot 5, 389 Millburn Avenue, block 805, lot 2, 296 Millburn Avenue. The first one was changed from exempt to mixed use commercial. The second is a change from vacant land to mixed use commercial. And lot 12, block 1207, lot 15, 251 Essex Street, also changed from vacant land to commercial. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. Any comments from the public with respect to this ordinance? Any questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Heller, would you like to make
Easy question. 343 Millburn Avenue, I think you're all new at expanding the district. Is the intent, and Alex, maybe you have an answer to this, to expand the budget or to reduce the rate of the property owners? This is now going to bring in more, it's not a lot, but some dollars. What's the intent?
Well, the budget has been introduced at this point by the.
Well, this is a township committee question, not a DMDA question.
Understood, but the budget being introduced at this point, in the addition of these properties, will act as a reduction in those individuals that are currently assessed, because you're adding more properties to that.
Has that been discussed as we were planning to do it that way? If the DMDA is short funds, I'm not saying it is, but if it is, why would we not contemplate adding these properties and adding the dollars?
I think that this year would probably not, the DMJ wouldn't be short, but my recommendation would be as of next year. Well, this is actually.
But you're voting on that
2019,
next.
right.
Yeah.
So, my my suggestion would have been to,
Just a question, I'm not standing up here to make a
no, but that's a good
point,
point.
but other than the point.
No, I understand that, but it's a good point. I mean, I think that it's something that we should have considered whether or not we want to increase the dollars to the DMDA. Because that's, at the end of the day, you have a rate that is what everybody should be paying as opposed to a decrease in the rate.
It's not necessarily, I think the rate would be the similar rate. So what I said before, if their rate is 0.11% of those commercial properties, it's going to be assessed to each commercial property.
Well, let's ask the question larger. What is the increase in the ratables added to the district by adding this property? So we can do the calculation.
I don't have the assessed value of these properties on this ordinance.
Perhaps our liaison to the township committee would, the DMDA would have an answer. I mean, somebody must have had this discussion, because I brought it up any number of times to the DMDA prior as to how we were going to handle these new properties. Prior to you, David. But it has been brought up any number of times.
Okay.
Budget, can I ask a question? This would be for next year, like, not the money they've gotten for this year, because we don't really know how the DMDA is going to
Wait.
fare.
No,
Right.
So right now, the budget is in front of us for 2019.
Right.
So they've done their budget, although if you're adding, I don't know how much
Right.
this will add to the budget, probably not a whole lot. But the question is just a fundamental question, whether or not you're going to enlarge the budget and everybody's going to continue to pay whatever the percentage is, or whatever the rate is, or whether you're going to use the budget that they've got today, or that they've presented to us and divided by,
I would be in favor of keeping the budget as is, because we don't really know the progress the DMDA is going to make. Apologies, we just really don't know what the future is, and to give them a bigger pot to work with, I don't think that would be prudent at this point.
I disagree with you,
Oh,
because that's.
okay. Well, that's okay. We disagreed before.
Yes.
Could we at least either from Jody or from David to
Well,
hear
yeah,
that
but
discussion?
after you're finished,
taking
I'm
place.
sure that
Thank you.
somebody else will come up. Yes, David, do you want to come on up?
Thank you. It's an interesting question to be brought up. I think as far as we're concerned, we've seen the budget. We're working to a hard number. I think if we were to hold to that budget and do what we could to, if the alternative would be to reduce the contribution to hold the number flat, 2019, that would be, we've got the resources we need to make an impact with the funds that we have now.
Okay, so that you're comfortable then with using the budget numbers you've provided to us, and then maybe following year we'll look at it again.
Correct. And maybe this could be an ongoing, as things get added, as new properties get added to the footprint, this could be an ongoing thing where the budget holds and then can be addressed in a future year. But we're getting more comfortable with the budget that we presented to you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This is for Howard. So would these funds just be held in a separate account, or just in the general? How would it be treated?
No, so
This
then
excess.
all of the properties in the roll would be assessed
Less.
based on the budget presented.
Okay.
Right,
We just divided by more number, more properties.
correct.
Yes, Ms. Glassman?
Rich Watchman, 24 Everest Court. I agree with Diane Eglo on this, but I would say if the DMDA could come up with a great plan for some extra money, maybe they could do some extra advertising and marketing short term if they can come up with a plan for the extra money. At this point, I don't think we know how much extra would come in, because I guess we don't know what those property owners would be paying.
Well, we know there's no extras coming in because they're comfortable with the number they've got. So no extra would come in. This is a budget for 2019.
No, I understand that. I'm just arguing actually the opposite of that. I mean, if they can come up with a plan right now, there's very limited marketing for the downtown. And I'm actually encouraging you to come up with a plan. If you could have more money, would you be able to use it for more marketing for, all the shops?
More money is always good. Again, we've submitted our budget.
We've seen the budget, they've submitted it, and we're going to be voting on it. So we're not going to change their budget, is what they're telling us for 2019.
Right, no, I know they're saying that, I'm just saying maybe if you had an opportunity to relook at what you could do, maybe you could do some extra marketing for the town instead of declining the money, which is what you're doing right now,
That's-
right?
I think the board is comfortable with what they've decided.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public? Any other questions from the township committee members? Okay, I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. And Ms. Paul Eglo, you have an ordinance?
Yes. Ordinance number 2512-18. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Authorizing Assignment of Open Air Cafe Property Lease Agreement between the Township and CB Millburn, LLC to JGIL Millburn, LLC. And this is the patio behind Charlie Brown's. And since Charlie Brown's has sold their property to JGIL, they would like to continue this to the end of the year. Oh, tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passages as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this ordinance? Any questions or comments from the township committee on this ordinance?
I should also mention, this is just going to the end of the year and has to be renegotiated again in 2019. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Ms. Rosenberg.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Township of Millburn, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 7 Traffic of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn. This ordinance is to address time limit parking on Essex Street. This will unify all of Essex Street to have the same time limit on all sections of the road. It will reduce some confusion as to different time limits along the roadway and will give patrons more time to park and shop within the downtown. So on Essex Street, there were some areas that were 1 hour that are now going to be 2 hours. So from Essex Street, the southeast corner of Main Street, easterly to Holmes will now be 2 hours. And from the intersection of Essex Street with Main Street westerly for a distance of 216 feet will also be 2 hours. I move this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law on the item and for hearing on final passage on Tuesday, October 16th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2514-18, an ordinance to amend Chapter 13 Fire Prevention Code and Chapter 8 Parks and Recreation of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn. The ordinance will change the permit fees to comport with the New Jersey Administrative Code and the New Jersey Uniform Fire Code with respect to the types of permits and charges. And the other piece of this is to prohibit now permitted by the state sparklers, I guess, in any park. So to have in their possession or any inflammable explosives and inflammable material or anything else in the sparkler, snakes, glowworms, smoke devices in our parks. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. May I have a second? May I have a vote?
I have a question about this. Is that a time or not? I have a question about.
Sure.
Okay, why are we banning sparklers
In the parks.
in the parks?
Just in the parks.
Why?
Um,
Are they deemed dangerous?
Well,
I mean, sparklers are fun. I don't know.
I actually think that it's probably a good thing not to allow them. Oh, listen, kids run, kids play, you know, you run, accidents happen.
I was just wondering, because sparklers seem pretty innocuous.
You can play with them on your streets, play with them in your front yards and your
And
backyards.
birthday cakes.
Birthday cakes. Anybody, you'll be able to talk about it at our next, when it comes up for final passage. Anyone who doesn't think this is a good idea, you're welcome to voice your opinion.
Is there roll call?
Yes, my roll call.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Gallego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. All right, new business. We have a couple of things, a couple of items of new business, real estate signage. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, the township was approached by a New Jersey Realtor to discuss the fact that temporary signage in the township is not prohibited, or is prohibited, and this was inclusive of trailblazing signs for realtors, and would like the township committee to discuss or take under consideration lifting that prohibition specifically for those trailblazing signs for open houses and such on Sunday. I provided the committee with some information, certainly to spark your discussion or questions about the matter, and you know, for your consideration.
So basically, everyone has the signs out, we're just going to now permit it. All right? Any thoughts?
I have no problem with it. I think it's practice in many towns. I read what the Realtor Board said, and it seems persuasive. But they're just beacons on those days. And as long as they're removed by the end of the day, then it's not a problem.
I agree.
I agree.
Ms. Lieberman? Easy discussion. Next is, last time we spoke, we were together, we talked about the construction activity regulations. And did everybody get a chance to look at the draft ordinance? So what I thought we would do is just sort of talk about the items in it, and then if you have any comments with respect to the text of the ordinance itself, maybe we just give it to Mr. Falcon and let him look at our comments, and then if he has any questions for us, he can ask us. But this would be amending the title of our relevant statute would be amended to read construction activity mitigation. It would expand the regulation of hours of construction and the use of power equipment to include regulating the use of heavy equipment, imposing requirements for dust and silt control, requiring fencing and toilet facilities, limiting the location of dumpsters, and requiring compliance with current tree preservation ordinance in order to impose controls limiting the negative effects on neighbors. Some new definitions for construction activity, power equipment, heavy equipment, legal holidays. They're not all new definitions. There's activities restricted now includes a prohibition on operating heavy equipment separately from power equipment. Permitted hours of restricted activity would now preclude the use of heavy equipment by anyone on Sundays. and legal holidays. And we would, of course, have exceptions for government work or work by public utilities. And as we discussed last time, we would talk about maintaining the construction sites in certain ways. So those are the general outline of what's included in this ordinance. Is there anything that somebody doesn't want to, that was suggested to be in here that they think shouldn't be in here?
I think this answers a lot of the complaints we've been getting,
Right.
and I think it's good.
Okay, good.
So in short, you could do your own work on a Sunday as long as it's not power equipment. So you can't backhoe on a Sunday, but you can leaf blow on a Sunday in your own
Correct.
house.
Correct.
Okay.
This ordinance, as it was distributed to you, I want to make sure that you understand that it was vetted with the engineer, the construction code official, the administrator, the code enforcement official, and they made a number of suggestions towards improvement, which we have incorporated within the text. It was a good effort on the part of your staff here to try and make this as good as it could be.
Well, except we're going to make it better.
True.
I have another question. So when it talks about violations, it says the code official can issue a stop work order. But on a Sunday, practically speaking, if my neighbor is backhoeing,
So, and that was
Please.
actually one of the later revisions, so just to clarify is that the police department is listed as an enforcement department on this, but it should be clarified that their enforcement will more than likely be restricted to the hours of operation and the days, so that if somebody is backhoeing on Labor Day, you would call the police and they would enforce the ordinance. But generally, the other items in this, obviously unless somebody's, doing that work on a Sunday, that might be debris removal and they're not wetting it down or whatever it is, that would still be a call to the police department because they're working when they shouldn't be as well. But most of these other things will be enforced another time.
It says requiring dumpsters to be kept on site or obtaining the necessary permit for on-street placement. Are we going to look at, there's some locations that I've noticed in the township where they have multiple dumpsters. Are we going to restrict, let's say, one dumpster per house?
Yeah, that situation in particular was an anomaly, I believe, in which the individual overfilled the dumpster and had to bring in a subsequent dumpster to be able to get both dumpsters out of it. But yes, generally speaking, they should have one dumpster, especially if it's going to be on the street. And it has to be done safely with proper markings and things like that. And it has to be an extenuating circumstance for them.
Anything about fines in here? And how would that be determined? Like, where would the fines come in?
The penalties are in the final section. It goes the normal route to the municipal court
Okay.
for fines and penalties, plus the construction code official has the authority to issue stop work orders if something is an ongoing problem. Under the ordinance.
What are the penalties now? How, if somebody has been, Dave Cuomo's gone out there multiple times, like when do we decide we're gonna fine a builder or a contractor? How does that work?
I couldn't answer when you decide,
Yeah.
but I do, Elizabeth Andes is here, my associate who worked with the staff, that one-day violation now under the municipal code is something like $1,200.
I don't know the amount offhand, but it is the general violation code that we incorporate into this.
And every day is a separate violation.
Right, every day is a separate.
Every day is a separate violation, so these fines can add up. Have we been fining any of these?
I think generally you don't.
Generally, we don't.
But I don't know the answer to that. But I don't know what has been permitted or not been permitted either, so we're trying to strengthen this. Is there anything, did you add here anything about keeping sidewalks clear or walkways?
No, nothing on sidewalks, we could do it now.
But yeah, I think that's something we talked about, was adding clearance for people who are walking, making sure that there's a safe passage when, house is under construction.
Okay.
Is there anything in here about spilling over onto neighbors' property?
That's addressed.
That's addressed.
Yeah. With fencing and all the other things that we talked about, but I didn't see anything about the safe passage.
And there's no way we can restrict the pavement, to put it in some kind of time frame, right? So somebody could have a project going on in perpetuity. We have some situations now where it's 3-4 years where, right? So there's no way to
I
put
don't
some
know.
kind
I don't know the answer.
I don't believe under the, I'll put this to Jerry, but I don't believe that there is a limitation. I mean, the expectation, the regulations is that people are typically motivated to build so they can sell and get on to the next project. Why some of these things linger, I don't know, but I'll figure out whether we can put some kind of limit.
Some are lingering because they stopped work orders.
Yes, but some are lingering also for other, I'm sure, a host of other, I can think of a couple of properties in particular that have, for 4 or 5 years, then they're still without construction. Yeah,
But they haven't started.
they haven't started, but they're vacant and they're unsightly. And I don't think that's,
But that's not, is that a construction?
that's a, I don't know if that's a construction or a violation or, but
I think that's probably a separate conversation, but you had brought that up to me. I
Yeah.
think it's something we can look into to see if
if there's any
but-
kind of mechanism for us to,
But in my conversation with the Department of Community Affairs, who does regulate this, they were very clear about their rules and the time limits that contractors have, and it's very favorable to developers and contractors. But certainly we can take a look.
Anything else on this? So my suggestion is if you do have comments on the text, then we'll get them over to Kate. Okay? Any other new business? My old business.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, let's get to it. Ms. Thornborough.
I do have something written up, so I would, this kind of piggybacks on last week when Committeewoman Rosenberg brought up about what we're doing about the complete streets, flex parking, and moving forward with the town. The town survey told us that a large percentage of responders, the vast majority being residents, do not like how the town's infrastructure was altered. Flexible parking is a problem. It is difficult to navigate, it is dirty. Striping tape at a cost of $3,000 was applied to delineate parking spaces. And now this tape is in the process of being removed by hand by our DPW staff. The designer, Arterial, out of Montclair, sold the idea of flex parking and removable ballards to allow for parades and 2 or 3 annual street fairs. The Memorial Day parade was canceled, and the Snowflake Parade will be held in Taylor Park this year. The street fair vendors' tents were hanging over the flex parking, visually unappealing and a possible tripping hazard. Can't say that word. Ballards and light poles have been hit, removed, and replaced. Car doors have been dented, hitting them as well. The town administrator did provide the committee with a report that the town just spent over $10,000 removing hit and damaged light poles. I thought you were going to report that, so there's more information on that. Overwhelming responses were to return asphalt to curbs to Millburn Avenue, preferably this past August. The town's consultant worked with our town engineer to formulate bid specs to do exactly that. Unfortunately, only 2 bidders responded, and both were immediately disqualified. I do not believe that we need to hire a public space planner, as Committeewoman Rosenberg suggested last time, who would merely serve as a conduit to hire more outside engineers, planners, and traffic consultants, while holding more public meetings. This, in fact, sounds exactly like what Arterial did. arterials contract cost the town $1.2 million. This service also would not be free and could cost the township at a minimum an additional $50,000. But more importantly, this serves to delay any decision-making to remediate the damage and harm caused by the multi-million-dollar Complete Street project. The mayor has created an ad hoc committee that consults with our own town traffic consultant to find ways to address all this new speeding and cut-through traffic in Washington and South Mountain section neighborhoods. Mayor, I would like to be on that ad hoc if possible. We are now adding speed bumps, new all-way stops, and considering enlarging and reconfiguring existing traffic circles, all at a cost to the taxpayers. The areas around Hobart and Highland Avenue have also seen increased traffic and speeding since Complete Streets, because we know people have found and will continue to find alternate routes to avoid the traffic in town. The entire Complete Street project has hurt our merchants and has resulted in these constant new fixes, all the while not addressing the real problem. There is no magic wand, and we cannot simply wish this away. I propose that our town's engineer, traffic consultant, along with our town planner, determine the specs once again to remove the flexible parking and return the right-hand slip lane back to Millburn Avenue to allow cars to yield to emergency vehicles. We also must change the entrance into Duncan parking lot off the crosswalk. This could all be accomplished and we could be ready for July start date. There are many, many more things that must be addressed to bring Millburn Avenue back to some semblance of normal. But I firmly stand behind not delaying addressing what we have been left with. And I definitely stand firm on not considering any new construction east of Main Street on Millburn Avenue until we have addressed these problems. Thank you. I would feel free, if anyone wants to discuss anything here.
No, in my opinion, I've had multiple people come to me and say, the flex parking is, don't spend my taxpayer money, people use it, people park there, it may not be the most beautiful, it may not have been the best design element, but we've got it, and let's work with what we've got. So I for one, would not agree to spend money taking out flexible parking. I think that's just throwing, you want us to call it good money after bad, so be it. It'll cost us approximately $20,000 a spot. You're talking spending $500,000 for 23 parking spots. To my mind, that is not a good ROI, return on investment.
Well, the bid specs were made public, along with our engineer's estimate, which was $250,000, not $500,000. We did have over 1,200 responses. 75% wanted this removed, and 80% were our residents. And it's not just the flexible parking, Mayor. It is that we don't have a right slip lane any longer to yield for traffic. We have the parking lot. They changed the egress and entrance for Dunkin' parking lots, and we're having cars exit directly onto a crosswalk. I can't believe anyone has agreed with that.
Listen, I completely agree with you on that crosswalk, but you may not get a traffic engineer to agree with you. Unfortunately, but I mean,
So a traffic engineer would think that this is a good configuration, having cars pulling in and out onto a crosswalk?
I can't tell you what a traffic engineer thinks, but I happen to agree with you. I don't think the crosswalk's in a great location.
Well,
But I'm not sure I agree with you in terms of the ingress and egress listen, I'm not a traffic engineer. I have to rely to a great degree on the people who, that's what they do, you know? I know that, but what can I say?
I'd like to add something. We conducted this survey, right, at the report. We had 1,200 responses. It was the overwhelming favor of the removal of flex parking. We put it out to bid, the committee voted to remove it, and now the entire mandate has been tabled. But we need to move forward with this. The residents, the merchants, the visitors have all spoken, and now it seems it has disappeared.
Well, first of all, we put it out to, you guys voted to put it out to bid. We put it out to bid. The bids came in. The bids were rejected. It's not that it was tabled, the bids were
The
rejected.
bids were rejected. It's
That's
a very
what
tight
happened.
time frame. I believe we should put it out to bid again.
Well, I think if you want to take a vote as to whether or not we should put it out to bid, again, I think it's just a waste of our employees' time. I think it's a waste of our money. I think that it is, you know what it's gonna cost? You're gonna still vote again to spend $500,000
It's not
to do it?
$500,000.
Well, that's the bid that we got. We got
The bid
one
that
valid bid.
We got,
You got one valid bid.
and we rejected that bid of $500,000. The other bid, that was $230,000, was more in line with what we believe the cost and the expectations will be.
You didn't get a valid bid, though. It wasn't.
get
a
more
valid
bids.
bid.
Let's put it out to bid
So get
again.
more bids.
Again.
Do it
Let's
again.
do it.
It's not
Let's put it
rocket
out to
science.
Let me
bid.
ask, I have a question for you. When, last year when you and I were running for
Mhm.
township committee, we were talking about finishing the Douglas, right? What did you keep insisting that we do?
What are we talking about?
I'm not sure I know what you're referring to.
What are we
The
talking
referendum, we're gonna spend the money, let's do a referendum. Don't you think that this, spending your taxpayers' dollars on $500,000 to,
It's not $500,000.
well,
We
whatever.
did,
have a
we
referendum. We
conducted
tried
a
to get a
survey.
referendum.
We conducted a
What does
survey.
one have to do with the other?
But whatever.
Just
they
vote
do.
it out.
Take a vote.
Do it.
We're not in public session.
I can't wait, I
This is
can't
a
wait till we
business-
are.
A meeting until it's open to public. Sari, you know better, okay? Until it's open to the public.
Cheryl, when
let
you
us
were running,
finish.
you proposed, stop trying to keep, to
No.
hold Jackie to what she said. You proposed an ad hoc committee that would include
We
stakeholders.
had an ad hoc
You
committee,
did not, and
and
then you disbanded it
Right,
after
right.
you were
You're
elected.
right. So,
We
I
need a
mean,
new mayor.
if you want to suggest referendum to spend this kind of money, to redo it, then feel free, while your voters can vote on it. But I personally, I wouldn't vote to put it out to bid again. Let me put it that way. I think it's a waste of your employees' time. I think it's a waste of our money. I think redoing it and doing away with it is a waste of our money, now that you know what it'll cost.
I
We
completely
don't know the
disagree. I
cost.
know. Well, it's not just flex parking and that we don't have a deal for the emergency vehicles. I'm not gonna repeat again, I was on the squad many years, I understand how cars have to move out of the way for a fire engine, an ambulance, and a police car. They can't do that now. I have friends and people telling me, they get very upset when they see cars stuck. Wait, let me finish, please.
Okay, but
Wait, no,
you're
I wanna-
mixing apples and oranges.
No, I
If
did-
you're
it's the
talking
same-
about the
Here's the
business lane,
story.
it's one thing. If you're talking about flex parking, it's another thing.
It's the entire issue that we have, what we were left with, from arterial design. And if we don't have our engineers and our planner look at this, this cannot stay. You talked about, Jody, about the live and the band Friday night, 2 Friday nights ago. I was standing on the corner with my husband, and the band was playing, and a huge garbage truck came up Main Street. The 2 ladies from the Ed Foundation were handing out flyers, and we all had to jump back because that semi came over on top of the curb where we were standing listening to the band. Now, I cannot believe that this is still considered a safe and acceptable design. The entire project needs to be looked at, and we can start in smaller sections, which would be removing the flex parking, fixing the entrance to Dunkin', no more donuts, Dunkin' parking lot, and getting that slip lane back. We have to start somewhere, because people are still complaining, people are now, we know for a fact that the neighborhoods are decimated with traffic and speeding. I also was at the meeting last night for Highland and Colbert. I wanted to hear what the residents say about their own intersections. They're not happy. And all that traffic, because there are now people who are avoiding Old Church Hills Road, are coming down Parsonage to Highland, they're coming down Old Church Hills, no, to Old Church Hills Avenue. We have spread the traffic out, and we're causing issues everywhere for this project.
Can I ask you?
Yes,
You're suggesting that because we have flex parking or because we have traffic in town, that that's affecting Hobart and Highland? which has had-
Absolutely.
Of course.
Traffic
There's been an issue.
Everybody's going around town. The whole world is going around town.
Talk. Mayor, can you, ask the public to please be quiet?
100%.
you've done a good
Do
job.
we live in the same town?
Continue.
I'm sorry, what was your response? The Hobart and Highland dangerous intersection is caused by the construction in town.
Traffic has increased because people are using that as a thoroughfare to avoid Old Trick Hills Road. Absolutely.
And this you know from what
People, I do it. Don't want to go down Old Trick Hills Road. I go down Highland Avenue, and I go down Trick Hills Avenue, and I'm not the only one.
So that's people and everybody. And also, you had said that we got 2 bids and they were both rejected.
Correct.
Okay, well, first of all, one was not a bid for us to reject because it was a void ab initio, correct?
They left out one part of the bid
Correct.
document. Correct, Jody. They left out a significant one.
Get it again.
And the second bid that you said we rejected, you rejected it, didn't you?
We had no choice. They were thrown out here by the.
You rejected it. You make it seem like we rejected it. You rejected it too.
Well, it was, Jody, it was rejected. It never got off the dais to get to Kit's office.
Right, so we did it. We took the taxpayers' money, we had somebody send this out to bid, and we rejected
So you're
bids,
saying,
all of us.
so you're done. You're done looking at this.
We finished that part of it, and I brought up discussing it again. I'm really disappointed that, that this is being grandstanded with speeches as sort of a political sign
This has been going
right
on
now,
for.
instead of an actual discussion. So I take it as
Open
a
the floor and let us
request that
discuss it.
nobody's
Last
interested
meeting.
in go.
Guys, come on.
I'll take it then as a response that nobody is interested in moving forward, when a year ago we talked about involving the public. So there's people in the public who've asked to be part of ad hoc or asked to be part of this process. So I suggested this. So it's basically, unless we do it your way by ripping everything out, there's no other way to do it.
Well, only if the mayor can form an ad hoc committee, and the mayor has publicly said she will not form an ad hoc committee. I was on an ad hoc committee for an entire year last year. I listened when Arterial and Sam Schwartz Engineering said we can get the left turn lanes back. We don't talk about it. So this is not grandstanding, it's not political. We have to talk about this. I say very clearly how I feel. I own up to my feelings on where we should move forward. What do you feel? Where do you want this to go, Jody?
It's not about feelings. Well, how about this? How about the fact that we have from 32 accidents to 0?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
What about hitting the poles?
We have video of that.
And you're gonna have to defend that, because I have all 130 accident reports right here, madam. Good luck to you when free time comes. Don't lie to the public. No accident. No, you cannot lie as an attorney, and you cannot lie to this council. That is improper.
Down.
Mayor, I
If
would
you want
ask-
to call the police, call the police. She is not going to lie to the public.
I would ask that you call the
They're
police
all
to
here,
remove Mr.
and the
Heller.
police have numerous accident reports, and this town administrator knows about these accidents.
Let's wait till
Heller,
public
sit
comment.
down. You know better.
No, he knows better.
No, you know
Hit and
better.
run reports, traffic lights, other pedestrians, other vehicles in minute. Don't let her lie to the public.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Wait till
You can ask Tim to leave. It's appropriate.
We're going to wait for public comments.
Mr. Hiller, that was really not necessary. You know better. Please don't do that again. Next time I will call the police and ask them to remove you. Ms. Rosenberg, you're saying?
At this point, I will continue this discussion at another time. I don't really think we need to continue this right now. What?
Jody, I
Okay,
am
hold on,
trying
hold
to
on,
ask.
hold on.
At this point, that's
Now,
where we're at.
hold on.
We're not gonna electioneer at the dais. That's not.
Oh, right.
Okay?
Who's running the meeting?
That's number one. Number two, please just let me know you want to be
Okay,
heard.
understood.
Okay, instead of the shouting between each other, totally inappropriate.
You're right, I agree. I apologize.
Okay.
So where do we go from here then? How do you want to take a vote if we should move on to go out for bids?
If that's what you want to do, you want to take a vote? You want to make a motion to go out to bid?
I would make a motion to get our engineers back on the task of reevaluating the bid specs, because I did speak to Alex. Most of the respondents wanted it done over the summer. We could have this done. We could be ready for July 1st to reconfigure some of the most heinous problems left from this Complete Streets project. Is that a motion? I'd like to make that motion.
I don't understand what you're asking us to do.
I would like us to I would like us to move forward with our town's engineer, a traffic consultant, and our town planner to determine the specs once again to remove the flex parking and return the right-hand slip lane to Millburn Avenue as a starting point.
To remove flex parking and
Get
to
that-
prepare specs.
Prepare specs, to
Just
go
to
out for
prepare-
bid.
To prepare specs and go out for bid.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, vote.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
No.
Ms. Baliba?
Yes,
Mayor Barsting?
No,
Got that on tape?
did not pass.
indeed.
All right, any other old business? All right, public discussion. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and address. Speak into the podium microphone, so your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the township's clerk office at cgotti@millburn.org to help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard. Well, I, again, am not going to use the clock unless people abuse the time. Does any member of the public have any comments? Please come on up.
Carrie Strasburg, under Cliff Road. Before the whole public comment goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, I just wanted to thank the Township Committee and the entire town for participating in Ragtoberfest. The Ed Foundation hosted the 3rd annual Ragtoberfest. It was in Taylor Park again, and then the after party was at 75 Main in the lot. The weather was amazing, and we had a great turnout. And many people in this room participated in ways that were just amazing. Richard Wasserman and his wife showed up at 7 in the morning to lug tables and chairs. And Ms. Rosenberg was a sponsor. Mr. Heller was also a sponsor. Tara Purpose was a sponsor. We had great participation from David Sorkin and the DMVA. He not only sponsored it, he's going to help us more next year. We have a couple of ideas to invite. But that was New Frontier and Suite 1. And all the feedback that we've gotten so far has been very good. So I wanted to thank the Township Committee for letting us use our beautiful Taylor Park and to have our after party. And Alex McDonald made an appearance with his kids, who were very cute. And I saw lots of you there, and we very much hope to be back there next year, hypothetically September 28th. So we will be coming to talk to you about that soon, but we just wanted to thank everybody in the town for their involvement with it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Sarah Sherman, 42 Greenwood Drive, South Mountain Civic Association. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We've been very concerned about the cleanup of the area around the joint meeting pipes at Gilbert Place, and I have been in touch with Mr. McDonald regularly, sending him pictures. The rain on September 25th really doubled the debris at the Gilbert Place location, and we are very concerned about getting a regular schedule of cleanup. So I would like to state that publicly. I know I've raised the issue with you. I know that there had not been a schedule. We want to know if that can be done, and with what frequency. The rain on the 25th frightened a lot of us. Those of us who live at that end of South Mountain, we run out and take pictures and watch the river and shake a little bit and worry that it will overflow. So without alternative 4A, I and the residents of South Mountain, who speak to me regularly, are trying to find some kind of regional approach for what we can do. So I would like to know if the Mayor's Council will continue.
I think we're meeting either next week or the week after.
Okay, and we've also sought some professional information about the buildup of little islands in the river, both downtown and at the Gilbert Place. Now, we know that some of those are altered over time with the flow of the river, but we are also interested in getting some information about dredging. So the D word that you're not supposed to use. So if I can't say dredging, I'm going to say desilting, desnagging, whatever the terms are that can get us some help there. A question that I would raise is whether or not it's possible to dredge the Taylor Park Pond. I don't know if that's ever been considered. And I know at the meeting with the Army Corps in July in Trenton, the issue of using the Campbell Pond, I believe it's called, and the reservation as a catch basin was raised. And I want to know also if that is on the table. So hurricane season is not over, and we still worry. So going forward, we'd like some assurance about what measures will be taken in the near and in the long term. And one last thing, Mayor. I said I would get feedback from people on the right-hand turn on Red at Main and Ridgewood, and yes, I did. So I am just passing that on to you. I have explained what was said in the meeting, that it is intended to reduce the cut-through traffic at that point through South Mountain, and residents of the Washington section also have said that they feel it's important for their residents who walk over to ShopRite or walk around those streets, that they feel that that is a safety issue. So I have conveyed that, but I would like you to know that there are many people who are still unhappy with that.
Thank you, I'm sure there are.
Trishka.
Thank you. Tricia Lister, I'm a resident of Benson Court in Short Hills, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the construction zone. I don't know where I get a copy of the new ordinance you are proposing, but I'd like to just touch on 3 different issues concerning the construction in this town. Since May 2nd, we on our street have been living through a nightmare. I thank some of you who have helped with the situation. It is not getting any better, as you know from my emails this week. So let's go into first with the safety practices. I've done 3 different categories, more than happy to send it to you. First of all, before we start construction anywhere in the town, perhaps the builder or resident should survey the property so that we do not take other people's property and put it in with theirs. So that should be done first. It should be marked with markers. Number 2, install a fence around the property to ensure the safety of children, adults, animals are not at risk as well.
We have included that.
Okay, well, I don't have a copy.
Right.
Number 3, apply water to the house during demolition and excavation. These homes built have asbestos. Some of it has been sealed. It's legal according to the state. When you remove it, it must be watered down.
We included that as well.
And not a garden hose. You guys are gonna have to figure it out, whether it's water on wheels or what have you. We were lucky on Benson Court because it rained that day. Number 2, the building ordinances should be communicated and enforced for all buildings. When a resident comes to the building department and asks for an ordinance, they should not be handed a book. Find it, is what I was told. Find it. Then I was told it did not exist. Well, long story short, there is an ordinance for retaining walls. It is buried. I got it and I sent it to everybody. What was going on our street was illegal and the town was not going to stop it. Had we not taken notice, it would have been a disaster. And number 2, or 2B, they should be clearly listed on the Millburn website in building. A retaining wall is not found under construction site or preparation or what have you. Excuse me, it doesn't belong there. It was well buried. I was laughed at by your head of your building department. I was handed a book and it was taken out because we found it. Get rid of that one-way mirror down there, because they all laugh when you go in there and they're watching what the residents are asking for. There's a one-way window when you walk in there on the left-hand side. They can see who's there. Get rid of it. Okay, number 3, the property owner's name, phone number should be on the site, or the police department should know. The house next door to us was stripped until midnight. They took the windows, the heater, the air conditioning, the electric, the fixtures. It went on from Memorial Day until the end of July. The sidewalk, the refrigerator, the kitchen cabinets, the bathrooms, stripped clean. And then they would come at midnight in their wagon and have a party in there. We didn't know what was happening, but we got tired of calling the police. They were there 6 times on Memorial Day. And every time they came, and the police were excellent, they would say, we own the house. How many people own the house? They didn't know when it closed. They didn't know what they paid for. They knew nothing. But the police said to us, what do? We don't know who owns the house. The only reason I know it had changed hands is because I'm a realtor for over 30 years in town. They didn't even know when they bought the house, but they all owned the house. They stripped it. They came at 8 o'clock at night to strip the house. There's nothing left. Number 3, let's get to the environmental concerns. Proper tree removal does not mean cutting the tree at the root that's 100 feet tall, slamming it on the ground. 33 trees were taken out of 7 Benson Court. Slammed to the ground. We now have to put in a new driveway, and I have damage in my house. It was like bombs coming down for 3 days. I get chased with a chainsaw because the builder and his crew from Livingston want to cut down my trees. There's a police report on that. Why should I have the residents have to stay home for 3 weeks to guard my property? Tell me. And then be chased by a chainsaw because the contractor, the tree man didn't think I was in the house that day because I had laid low. And as he was going to get my trees at 5 feet, I went running across the front yard and I called the police. You should properly dispose of waste materials. For 2 weeks, we've had garbage by the side of the street. I told the code enforcer, I sent him a picture. We go on vacation, we come home, my 2-year-old grandchild wants to pick up the orange peels and the wood and everything else from the street. Thank you. It was removed last Friday afternoon finally. The whole truck was loaded with black bags or whatever. Shouldn't be. Get a garbage or take your food elsewhere and dispose of it. They have no facility up there to get rid of their garbage. They did clean it up today. I don't know why. There should be a porta potty on the property. When they issue a building permit, somebody from the building department should get in their little car with their flashing lights and go see if there's a porta potty. Instead, my property became the porta potty. And then the builder get all over town. Mrs. Lister, Trish Lister has a problem with her woods. Why can't we use her woods to go to the bathroom? Well, my neighbor across the street has a 2-year-old. They're looking at men coming out in the street, pulling up their pants. She got the brunt of it, not me. Not right. And the porta potty never came until we had to call the police on Saturday because, again, nothing happened. Is this what we're in for? And then they shut them down, and the men were nasty because they couldn't understand why they can't just use somebody's property. And then we should have the water, and we should also have electric. That property has no electric on it. And when they cut the cable lines, they're hanging. I put them together and wrapped them on the telephone pole so a kid didn't get hurt. They're still hanging there. They should be cut up above. We've got a whole neighborhood of young children. We still don't have any fencing, and we got an 8-foot drop. There's no fence on that property. Big boulders. The street is loaded with mud. The mud is coming across my property. The front of my curb is loaded with mud. The men use my property to cut through. I'm not a cut through. Maybe I should charge. They're cutting through my property to get to their trucks and everything else. But I've been nice. I haven't said anything. But I don't know what's in this new ordinance, but I would love to read it and comment it because you people don't want any input from the residents. I've lived through
They
it.
don't.
Well,
Certainly.
I offer.
And actually,
Certainly
Mrs.
is.
Lister, because of a lot of your emails
Yes.
to us, that's what, prompted us to look at.
I appreciate that. I appreciate,
I know how much.
Right,
trouble
and
you
Alex,
had.
I took the time and I explained to him, and I think he understood, and unless you're a realtor dealing with this, you're not gonna understand why we were upset on Benson Court with the asbestos. We know it had asbestos, we knew it was buried, they're the second owner, I knew the history. So I did explain to Alex, and if you're not in this every day, you're certainly not gonna know. But I thank you, but we need to make more progress.
Right, so we don't, the draft we got was a working draft. And once we have a draft that's acceptable to us, we'll certainly get it out to the public, so.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
comment,
look at
it needs to be,
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely.
Right, but it's still, I mean, we're still living through it on Benson Court daily. Daily, we are.
You should get
It's not fun.
you should call the Star Ledger.
Thank you.
That's a Star Ledger story for sure.
What?
Well, contact the newspaper, 100%.
We have digital pictures, you have no idea.
You should contact the newspaper. That's just wrong.
Yeah. No, just give it.
Terry Waller, 243 Millburn Avenue, 56 Byron, for my residence. I just handed you out something short from the Complete Street program, and I know we are public discussion, and I'm going to read this very quickly, and would like your comment, your input, separate from the earlier discussion, and this is right out of the Complete Streets plan, as approved by this township committee, or the prior township committee. I can wait.
Potty time.
I can wait a record.
Wait a moment.
Shouldn't you check that?
The Millburn Complete Street Plan is a, in capital bold, comprehensive capital improvement strategy to address pedestrian safety, vehicular circulation, and economic vitality in the downtown. Underneath that, it says improve vehicular circulation and access, create a safe environment for pedestrians, support the needs of adjacent stores and restaurants. I would make a very compelling argument that this has not been adhered to. To some extent, pedestrian safety has been addressed in narrowing crossing distances across Millburn Avenue and Main Street, but on the other hand, the number of traffic lights that have been knocked down, the number of trucks, cars, other vehicles that come on the sidewalks across those narrow distances. To what Committeewoman Eagles said earlier, we haven't assessed what's been done here. That all of us are still coming out to meetings some 2 years after this began, myself almost 3 years. Something has happened. People didn't used to, as you know, didn't come to township committee meetings, and people have been coming nonstop for a long time. Not addressed with Paul Phillips, who, Mayor, Paul has emphatically told you, Committeewoman, the public, the planning board, that he has over 700 comments on the new master plan that's being asked to be commented on, most of which, he said, predominantly in more than the school system, people are commenting on the downtown. And Paul's been pretty emphatic about that people are not happy, whatever that may be, they're not happy with it. And maybe they don't want to spend money, as you're saying, but they're not happy. But not to come back and look at the traffic lights that have been knocked down, the bollards that are being knocked down, the concrete, the non-ADA flex parking, not having an ADA parking space on the street, which I don't personally happen to favor because I don't think it benefits the stores, but I can't tell you a town that has not put those in. So for this plan to be considered complete streets, to have connectivity, we have no bike lane. We have a giant bike sign just east of Town Hall. There's no bike lane. There's no way to get from anywhere to anywhere. So what I'm asking is, in this public discussion, I'd love comment, is why not employ Paul Phillips? I understand we pay our own engineer, our own planner's money. I brought this up at the planning board last week with reference to the master plan. We're just doing a re-examination of something that goes back to 1985. We're not looking at the entirety of the town. When we go and change the B4 downtown district, if they do for height, it's for every property in the town. It may not be for every particular piece of property. It may be for specific properties. So an examination report, as you know, is not complete. Paul has this, not Paul doesn't. Somebody even mentioned Cranford on the dais, on the podium. Paul and his associate do Cranberry, and they've done the Cranberry redevelopment plan. We had not once, and I want this to be on record for the public, and this goes back to when Complete Streets was passed, Paul Phillips' only involvement in that was being asked to come up with names. Paul came up with 5 names. He was involved in the evaluation process. I think you can confirm that, Alex. Other than that, he has never had any involvement in an official capacity. I would ask that you, whether it be ad hoc, whether bring Paul Phillips here in front of the public, to present, to ask, before we go out and get a planner, before we go out and do it. Paul, as our expert, can't be our revitalization downtown, I don't believe. I think it's conflict. I think that third counselor, he might have to resign to be able to bid, as it would be have to put out the bid to choose a planner. But let's bring Paul in, or others, but we certainly should ask Paul what he thinks. He's doing it in another domain at the planning board because nobody's really asking him per se, but it's part of his job there. But nobody's ever asked him at the township committee. All right, that's that. As I'm hoping this would be a public discussion, I would ask, I think Complete Streets Phase 1 is over, and I think it would be helpful for the town, for the residents, for everyone to know. Phase 1 is over, the money is spent, whatever that dollar amount is. It's over. It's not grandstanding, it's not politicking, it's, I think it would be helpful to real estate brokers, anybody contemplating coming into town. Assuming that's so, I think your mayor's ad hoc committee doesn't need to be here anymore. It's a Complete Streets ad hoc committee. Assuming we're done, we're done. We have $3.7 million of bond authorization that's still out there. I'm going to call that dirty money. It was approved by 3 people who are no longer on the township committee, with 2 others, and I don't believe that you had the real knowledge, nor did I on that day. I was at that meeting, of what Ted Nean did, and what Ted said was, in the event that we need more money, it was presented to the public, to me, I do this for a living, and some other people in this audience, that the $8.2 million was going to pay for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And I truly believe that you believe that. I truly believe, Ms. Rosenberg, that you believe that. We've spent $6 million. We've entirely spent the arterial contract, Alex, plus or minus $100,000, which all sorts of add-ons, whatever it may be. Counselor, we have a contract with arterial. We've fulfilled our contract with Flanagan. I understand that. I think it's over. We still have an outstanding contract with arterial. In theory, they can sue us to complete the contract. We need to do something with the arterial contract, either terminate it, or finish it, or decide that it's in process and this township committee is going to continue it, in perpetuity. But we need to do something with it. Of the $6 million that has been spent, and Diane, I think you're approximately correct, about $1.2 million was in design fees. That $1.2 million was for all 3 phases. In my, when I say expert, I have an opinion. To complete Phase 2 and 3, and I would say to you, real estate development that is coming down the way via affordable housing and or other things, the recycling yard, Phase 2 and 3 can be paid for. Not on the backs of the taxpayers, in essence, new ratables that are created. It could be up to $15 million to complete Phase 2 and Phase 3, and maybe $10 million. We don't know, it depends on what we designed it to be. I don't believe that's what has been designed. All right, I'll go on. If I may, a question. We have approximately $2 million, $2.2 million left unspent on the bond. Right. Like any of us, we have money in the bank. If we're not getting interest, the banks are starting to pay interest. We're paying interest on that bond. We're paying amortization on that bond. I believe the interest rate that we borrow at, is it a 10-year bond?
It's a bond anticipation note.
And how many years is it paid off over?
It's paid off over 10 years.
Right, so it's approximately 2.5%, plus the $2.2 million to pay down There's some hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, including amortization, that we're paying on that $2 million too. We can work that number out, but my point is either pay it back or spend it. I know you don't want to spend dollars on something that you don't want to spend it on, but we got to do something with that money. And it goes for the 3.7 as well. That is money that we are paying out of the residential and commercial property owner. This is not a commercial guy speaking now, this is the property owner of a home. Mayor, I've asked several times at any number of meetings, we spoke briefly a few weeks ago, a few meetings ago, about removing old store signs. You said something about it in Alex and DMDA, but it has to be done by ordinance to take down signs that have been up in some cases for years in the downtown district. I'm telling you, as a property owner, town looks like a morgue when you have signs that have been up for years.
What are you referring to?
Out the garage. Annie says has recently turned, as per maybe myself, of calling inside out, that turned it upside down so you don't really see the Annie says, but Curate Day, Bedazzled, there's any number of others that are still around town.
So you need an ordinance that force, when they vacate their store, they don't automatically take their signs off?
Well, the tenant never does, the property owner may. But in this case, the property owners are not.
Why would they leave signs up on a store that's been out of town for 1, 2, or 3 years?
Some property owners don't want to spend money, don't want to plan. Please, if you consider, I would tell you, the little things that don't cost money that we can do very easily and very quickly. And just while on that, most times you're walking down the street, the bakery, I went there this weekend, first time, a tremendous piece of focaccia, cauliflower, truffle. But if you're walking down the streets, particularly in town, we have a disconnect. River, vacant stores, Flywheel is more or less closed from 10 to 4. You don't walk from place to place unless you typically can see what's in front of you. Blade signs, the reference. We have an ordinance against that. I had to come in front of the planning board some 20 plus years ago to get the Starbucks one on the corner. There's a couple of others around the town, most of which are not permitted, but they're there. So please consider that. If I may ask, again, you've said, Mayor, we've had no response to a possible left-hand turn from Main Street to Essex in the off hours.
I actually need to meet with Maurice, but for some reason, he didn't show when I asked him to disconnect with his office. So next time, in our next ad hoc, I will speak to him if not before. But yes.
Last. Didn't expect to bring this up in the form that I did earlier, but this is not going to put this to rest. And we've had this discussion 3 meetings ago. You made reference, Mayor, to deaths with reference to pedestrians in the downtown. There was one death, and it was the police report. By the way, police reports from 2012, 13, 14, 15, which the police have done a tremendous job on. There's great pictures, there's great narrative. They did a terrific job. There's not deaths. Mr. Levy has made not death statements, but other statements. Kenneth Lively had made a statement a couple of weeks ago that he thought this was reconciled. What I would just like to ask, because everybody's out there, it's safer, it's not safer. Someone tonight said that there's no pedestrian accidents since Complete Streets. Alex, you know, the police department has called me any number of times, and I've provided video footage to car and pedestrian accidents, to vehicle accidents. There are any number of other accidents. Those other accidents that I don't even know that, but people call. We don't sit there and watch. The larger point to that is, Mayor, we were under construction in 2016 and 17. Of course the accidents are down. Additionally, the accidents are down because we have no left-hand turns. No question, there was something wrong with the left-hand turns. Of the 140 accidents in the 4 intersections, 110 of them had nothing to do with the intersections. And I'll let you ask the police department yourself, an accident report has to cite, if you've ever filed an insurance claim, they ask you the nearest intersection. 110 of the 140, and I'm not going to bore people with the details, so some of them are funny. I was looking in the store and the coffee spilled on my lap, my phone. Any number of the accidents have something to do with that. The pedestrian accidents total approximately 20-25 on 4 intersections, primarily Millburn Avenue in Maine and Essex Street in Maine. Most of them had to do with who had the right-of-way at the intersection. Speed coming in, not having the dead zone that the pedestrian part. I would just like to ask as part of a review, so all of us aren't out there saying, This has not been successful, this has been successful. Nobody has re-looked at these. The mayor and deputy mayor were on a mission to get complete streets done. These accident reports are what they are. The interpretive part of it is what someone wanted to interpret at that time to allow this complete streets program to be designed the way that it was. Somebody needs to re-look at these 140, 120, 140, over 4 years. We have to all stop running around saying things that are not true. Give it to Sergeant Patel, give it to the parking and traffic. I think residents, business, people should be on that as well. Let's get to the bottom, and it's not going to give a truth, but at least there's going to be a narrative that we've looked at something after the fact, that people are running around saying, these are the accidents. The gentleman here behind me on the left has called me any number of names in the public domain and private domain, saying that we've had all these accidents, we don't have them now. Nobody but me and 1 or 2 other people have been through these. I would just encourage the Township Committee to stop allowing people to say things that aren't true. There's no fact on this. There's subjective based upon reading it. Let's read it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like
Thank you for
to
your time.
speak for a moment. I did read those reports, and I do understand what you're referring to, that they were not deaths. There was not people, I've heard people say pedestrians are being mowed down in Millburn. Also, not true. Millburn was not a raceway. There were some issues, I agree, and I believe that the complete streets was an overfix. And I would be happy to read them again if I could get copies of them, because I know that there was a couple of pedestrians were hit. They were kids jaywalking. I happen to have been on the scene at one. One was actually one of my friend's child. So they were all kids, unfortunately, running out. And I think we can all agree that the jaywalking and the cross-cutting has not stopped at all. So that did not change one bit. And that's people, that's human nature, and it's even worse now because everyone's looking down at their phone. And we can't change these people. And the complete streets has not changed people's behavior as much as we had wished it would.
As a reminder, the elimination of the left-hand turns. There are places, Route 10, places you can't turn them in South Orange in a much busier intersection. We didn't have the number of accidents that we had here. Of the 30 approximately accidents, probably 20 some odd of them had to do with left-hand turns on Millburn to Maine or Essex to Maine. They shouldn't have happened if you read them for the most part. At what cost?
Which is one of the accidents.
One of their accidents. But you don't take away the left-hand turns to do that. There are other things that are arterial to accomplish the narrowing and others. It's all things that should be looked at. I would make the argument, and I've heard other people talk about traffic, I talked about that a little bit. The removal of those left-hand turns, they haven't thought about the consequences of the additional mileage. You didn't really take away a left-hand turn. You now go to Lackawanna and make a left.
Listen, I agree with you. Okay, I agree that the left from Maine to Essex, taking that away doesn't make sense.
Well,
But-
just hear me out. If you don't make the left from Millburn to Maine, you're now making the left from Millburn to Lackawanna. You're then making another left from
Right,
Lackawanna.
making
So
a
you're
circle.
creating more mileage, more turns, and if we ever do complete phase 2, we're just, I'm going to use the phrase, kicking the can down the road and pushing the traffic to Lackawanna, where the accidents are just going to happen down there eventually. Eventually, we have to allow left-hand turn, or we can just push her all the way down eventually to the end of town and invest our savings in B and C and do it there. And not have anybody turning and anybody moving through the town. Just all part of the complete review.
Right, all right.
Good work, Harry. Good job.
Mazer, Greenwood Drive. First of all, Alex, I'd like to thank you for getting those flashing signs put at the intersection of Hobart Gap, Watergate, and Hobart Avenue. We've had some discussion on Hobart Avenue today. You seized the initiative and got a traffic engineer to look at that intersection, and the recommendation was that we should install a traffic light there, that would improve the flow in the intersection, cut down wait times, and improve safety. That's a county road at that point. I believe the county has jurisdiction, is that correct?
Correct.
Have they acted on this?
To date, no. They have, as far as the report and the intersection itself, no.
Could I make a recommendation, Madam Mayor? You've got your business you have to get through at the meetings. What I would suggest is that you take the county report and move that to just before the public input. I think there's a lot of things, we're paying 27% according to our last tax bill. 27% is going to the county, a little over 22% is going here. I think there's a number of issues that we as taxpayers would like to pose to the county representative. And basically, we're just getting reports on how happy the giraffes are and, you know, and it was a lady at the last meeting who I think had some very serious questions about what the development of the reservation. And, you know, telling you people on the township committee isn't going to get her an answer.
Actually, if George had been here today, we were going to raise that intersection with him today.
All right, but
I hear
if
you.
you could, and just change a meeting, it means yours will go a little quicker. The overall might be the meetings are gonna run longer. But you get through what you have to, and we give people an opportunity of raising issues with the county. All right, next thing is, we've had a lot on traffic today. One of the things that I would like to suggest is that on the township website, that there be put in a section where people could email comments to the town. I recognize you'll get some flaming emails, but I think...
Anyway?
Pardon?
We get them anyway.
Okay, all right, but it would give people, if they have an idea, a lot of people don't want to come out to these meetings, they're not familiar with the operation, and there may be some valid suggestions that would come out of this.
A suggestion box on the website.
All right. And if I can give you one today, it would be changing the timing on the traffic light at Essex and Main Street. It's actually, the timing right now, I think, is probably the same timing that it had when the left turn was permitted. I just, with my cell phone heading north, the cycle is 43 seconds, heading south it's 28 seconds. It makes no sense for cars to be there.
They do provide for crossing, so that
It's not the white person is for the whole part of it. It's not that it's protected. And it makes no sense for cars to be stopped going south, watching the cars heading north. There's no cross traffic.
we'll bring that up.
Okay. There's been a reference tonight about the crash investigation reports. Have we had our traffic consultant look at these? We've got an irregular street pattern in town. To look at these, I mean, it's going to be money, but it's relatively small amount of money to see where we're having accidents. You had an individual come in last meeting for Highland and Hobart. Why don't you have your traffic consultant look at where we're having accidents in town and determine whether it's we need more enforcement, whether we need a redesign of the intersection, whether the sight triangle is not appropriate. It's a low-cost way of reducing the accidents in town. Just one other thing, if I may mention, on Complete Streets, there was another comment again today about the inability to pull over for emergency vehicles. I've mentioned it before. 40 years ago, we had a setup where the fire department was able to change the light in the center of town from red to green. Those systems have become more sophisticated. It's totally independent of whether or not you add lanes, subtract lanes there, and that would be a long-term solution. I did, and I mentioned it many months ago, just a response time to one particular house in the Wyoming area. There was a difference of 3 minutes at midnight and another run at the same house at noon. We've got the middle school, we've got the Wyoming school, we've got the Wyoming Presbyterian Church. I think it would be money well spent to have your traffic engineer look at that, price it out, and see. These are systems that are used routinely. National Highway Transportation has said they decrease response times and also decrease accidents. Another thing, Sarah Sherman had mentioned about removing the debris. I was wondering if we get the debris from every other town, and that's where it hangs up. Whether we can get just a meeting of all of the towns up and down the river and get somebody from DEP and see what we can do as far as routinely removing the debris, removing the siltation, removing the rocks that come in the heavy rains, so that when we do get heavy storms, that we do get the maximum amount of water flowing through there that we can. And last, you're looking at signs. One of the things, if you're planning to make revisions to your ordinance, is that you have something that graphics shall be removed no more than 7 days after the date when the contract or lease is signed or the reason for the graphic had ceased. Every real estate person in town keeps the under contract sign up until I think they actually close on the property. And I would suggest either removing it from the ordinance or enforcing that the sign should come down 7 days after the property goes into contract.
If it's under contract.
It's not done till it's
I
done.
don't understand your point, I'm sorry.
All right, well, the house is for sale. If it's under contract, then the house is no longer for sale.
Not necessarily.
All right, according to your ordinance, it's supposed to be, the graphics are supposed to be removed 7 days after the lease is, the contract or lease is signed. So the sign shouldn't be up there more than 7 days under contract.
Is this commercial or residential?
All right.
This is anywhere in town. I'm just saying, when you're revisiting your sign ordinance, that should be looked at also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
May I respond to something Mr. Mazur said? You had approached me with that system that allows the fire trucks or ambulance to get through the intersection. We did price that, we talked about it. A couple of years ago it was $100,000, I don't know what it is now. But I did question to Alex, does this just affect our emergency vehicles or Cranford, Springfield, Union coming up from Main Street? Or other towns, when the paramedics are coming down from Overlook into town. So I don't know how that works, if it just goes on to our emergency vehicles, so we're not helping other outside. Yeah, so it's not a perfect solution, it costs a lot of money, but it would certainly help ours, but it's another thing that, we have to decide if we want to spend that kind of money. But I appreciate you always bringing that up, Mr. Mazur.
Anything else? There's a motion.
Yeah.
to do it?
Yeah, I'll go after.
Sorry, Castle on Fairfield Drive. So, Mayor, you talked about throwing good money after bad, or what could be termed as throwing good money after bad. So, and you're right, nobody wants to throw good money after bad. And, it would be great if we didn't have to spend any money. And so there should be some cost-effective things we might be able to do to ameliorate some of the problems that are obvious with the current configuration of downtown. And it does contribute to cut through traffic, not just in Washington and South Mountain, but also because Old Short Hills Road backs way up right into my neighborhood, so I know people do cut down Highland. They absolutely do. There's no question about it. I'm very, talking about throwing good money after bad, $10,000 to replace or remove dented light poles. And I don't know how much wasted employee time to remove the mastic on the flex parking. You talk about wasting employees' time and our resources to create specs. What about that? What about all of the DPW work that has to be done on all of these fixes, the dented bollards, the light poles, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than spending money with some kind of service to facilitate conversation or some kind of consultant to facilitate conversation, why not have an ad hoc committee, which, Mayor, you said you were in favor of before you were reelected, and then after you were reelected, you decided that was no good, we're not going to have that. But why don't we have a committee that includes the traffic engineers, that includes the township planner, that includes landlords, merchants, residents, people who are affected. There are a lot of smart people who live and work in this town and who are energized and want to fix this, to look for low cost or even no cost if possible, but low cost or the most cost effective, things that would give us the biggest bang for the buck, that could improve traffic flow, that would mitigate some of the problems in town. There isn't any question, based on the survey results, based on the new results from this new survey, people, I know people say to you, no, leave it alone, but people say a lot of things to everybody. And most people who I've heard from, now maybe everyone loves it, but most people that I've heard from and people that I talk to from other towns cannot believe what we've done to the downtown. And we should put together a committee and examine and look for cost-effective ways that we get our biggest bang for the buck. It's a very reasonable thing to do. Let's take a really deep dive and look at this. And it just makes all kinds of sense.
Anyone else?
Oh, wait, I have something to add. I'm sorry. Alyssa Sutton, 75 Mountain View Road. Did we determine how much time and money we're spending on removing the $3,000 lines on the flex parking that we are on week 5 removing for the Department of Public Works?
Yeah, the Public Works Department has been out there for an hour and a half in some mornings during the week, 2 guys. There have been about 33 hours of man hours spent on removing that too.
Times 2?
No, that's times 2.
Okay. And the mastic is not coming up along with the white part of the tape. So what they're doing is they have a blow dryer, and then it's heating up the black mastic, which is then releasing the white striping, and then the other guy's pushing the white striping. And so now we just have, instead of white striping, we have black mastic, which has now been heated, and since it's been heated, is now making the rest of the sidewalk dirty. So now we have another problem. So now we have to now figure out how we're going to remove the mastic, and now all of the flex parking really should be cleaned in some fashion because it's filthy, and even dirtier as we've now heated up with this gun. So I don't know if it would have been smart to actually approach a company like the company we paid $3,000 to on how to properly remove this, instead of asking the public workers, because they don't know, because I went up and actually asked them what's the proper way to remove this, and they said they were instructed to bring a heat gun because they couldn't get the scraping up over the white. So I don't think they're professional white stripe line removers. They may, in fact, know the dump yard very well. I know most of the guys. I went to high school with many of them. But I question this throwing good money after bad choices. Why are we not informed as the public on such a divisive issue of flex parking and spending money about removing the flex parking, and we're now having people scrape the sidewalks, not solving the issue? We're going to now have to paint, repaint, retape, I don't know what we're doing again, so people then know where they're supposed to park. I'm lost as to the lack of communication of the township committee, who have emailed everybody up here twice, except for the attorney, excuse me. And only 2 people responded to my email, and with no real true information. But again, the public has the right to know what is going on with these decisions as to how we're spending money on this flex parking. That's not going to go away. I will knock on every door in town. It is not going to end. So, Cheryl, you can enjoy your time here, but there's a lot more of us than one of you.
Okay.
Bill Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. I guess we're in two different worlds here, because one thing I know, before most of you were on the township committee in one capacity or another, or I don't know how many people were coming to meetings here, but I do know that there were, whether people agreed or not, thought Complete Street should just be stopped, there were a large number of public meetings. There were all these meetings to question arterial, to say this is a lousy idea, to ask about, I mean, that was going on. So we're talking about maybe inaccuracies. I mean, that was going on, and I know it was going on. Other people do too. So for people to get up here and talk as if there has never been, someone could maybe quarrel with communication in the last year or two. They could quarrel with that if they want to. But to say there has never been any communication is just not true. And I wish that, I know I would tend to listen more to someone if they weren't so extreme to get up as just the whole thing is some kind of plot, some kind of secret disaster, because that is not true. And so I ask myself, what else should I listen to from people who come from that extreme? So, thank you.
I'll let you. No, you can.
I believe you were, I think there are people who haven't had a chance to speak. All right, go ahead, Richard, come on.
No,
Just come on, Richard. No,
No.
Richard, please, come on. Richard.
I don't want to pose. Anyway, thank you. I just want to echo what recap says. It doesn't have to be two sides against the middle here. You could have some experts, you can have some new voices. There's no reason, to make it a, them against us type of situation. We have a lot of people that want to get engaged, with the issue of complete streets. You have tape issues, you have right-hand turn issues, you have left-hand turn issues. I know that originally you talked about appointing an ad hoc that could engage some of this even while time is going on. I don't understand why you haven't done that, and I just don't understand it. So that's my 2 cents. And also, Oktoberfest was fantastic. It was really a great effort by everybody, and I want to commend the committee that worked on it and all the sponsors, and it was a lot of fun.
Nancy Stone, Fielding Road in Short Hills. I want to commend all of you for doing an incredible job. You guys have a really tough job having to face this crowd every month. I don't know how you guys do it. Twice this month, actually. But I got to tell you, you come, you listen, why we're focusing on tape and all of this. Why can't we focus on the good? The town looks better. It absolutely looks better. Was there mistakes made? Absolutely. Are they going to hopefully be corrected?
Apparently not.
They
It doesn't
will
look
be.
that way. Apparently not.
Well, you know what? With a few people that are very vocal, there's a lot of people that outnumber the people that have gratitude for what we have. And if you poison the well, then you're not going to have a town to even go to. And that's a big problem. Because let me tell you something, I have a business here 30 years, and if you keep poisoning the well, we're not going to have a downtown to go to, and you should appreciate what you have before it's gone. And I applaud all of you for doing the best work that you can. Everybody tried to do their best, and the people that didn't are out, and you do your best. And you had time to complain, you didn't show up, and you didn't put your 2 cents in when you had to, and now you gotta go back and say, oh, this is bad and this is bad and that's the best. I mean, that's just wrong, just absolutely wrong. I'm very proud of this downtown. I live here, I'm proud of it. I respect the merchants that show up every day to do their best for this community. And people better start respecting what they have before they lose it altogether.
Janet Pizar, 186 Main Street. I would also like to address the issue of communication. And I'd like to say to everybody here tonight, please come to every meeting that you can come to. whether you're on this side or that side, we need you to work on this town, and we need your voice. And the fact that so many people are talking about having had no knowledge of complete streets is case in point. We need you here, and we need you to bring other people here to the town. Because if you're apathetic about the town, if you're not attending meetings, if you're not checking the item, if you're not reading the website, if you're not watching a neighborhood to see what's happened in the meetings, you're apathetic. I learned my lesson 13 years ago, and I've been coming to meetings almost 13 years. And one more thing I wanted to say. This is not the first heated, controversial issue in this town, nor will it be the last.
Right.
So come, stay involved, raise your voice at the proper time, and be part of the process.
Here, here.
Mayor, just a side question, nothing to it. Canoe Brook Road, the mall, what's our status with closing the street? And is that project going to commence? Do we know anything?
The
Mac Cali project.
I
Oh,
mean,
what is the Mac Cali project?
Well, and the street is supposed to be closed in anticipation of that, so again, it was supposed to be a shelter, animal shelter.
let me just, yeah, just to be clear, that the street is closed. There is an obstruction.
It's not officially closed, it's not legally
And it's
closed.
vacated at that portion of.
It's not legally closed.
It's a vacated, there's a vacated portion of the road. And there is an obstruction, whether it's legally closed or not. The project is set to commence, as you probably noticed, they've cleared the site. We don't have a specific date as to when they're going to start, but it is imminent. And just for everybody else to know that the Google issue with Finner and Way and Cedar Brook Road has been resolved.
If council do permit to address, the street is not legally closed, and we are looking for quick claim deeds or other terminology from the property owners on either side of the street. And the issue is, and again, having attended, starting with zoning, planning board, subsequent, the concern is that the poet section or entire Short Hills could have that street opened again in the event that rescue, emergency, school, Board of Education wants access, Kennedy Parkway floods. That street will get opened if we don't close it. There's no question.
When you mean physically, wait.
Legally.
Physically or
Legally close it, they will sue at some later date to open the road, as per my understanding, having seen that ordinance, having seen it, believe it or not, Elaine Becker, it's closed by ordinance. It's not legally closed. I have the ordinance. Believe it or not, Elaine has it. Elaine
We'll
gave
look
it.
at it, okay, because I'm not
Well,
quite
it's
sure
not a
what
new
it
subject.
means.
There's a woman from Canoe Brook who's come in front of you.
She was
and-
talking about physically, she wasn't talking about legally, so that's why I'm just trying to
No, she was
understand.
talking about legally. Absolutely, that's what we're concerned. But if you may, and the council knows a lot about this, that predates even your involvement. We
We have received the deeds from the adjoining property owners from the country club and the water company, conveying all of their interest in the property to the township. We are waiting for an additional certificate that needs to accompany the deed when it gets recorded in Canoe Brook. We have that transaction.
But there's a second part to this, and why prior township committee was choosing to put an animal shelter and a structure on there is to make sure that at some later date, that street is not reopened from Kennedy Parkway back in the Short Hills. What is the status of that? And I think I know the status of that, is that there is no status on that. How are we going to prevent in the future from the mall, which was closed long before this hotel, long before this apartment complex, the street was by ordinance? How, if we don't put something there, is there not the possibility of that being opened again? By just obtaining what you're referring to?
Yeah, there's, the township now owns what was formerly owned by the water company and by the Canoe Brook Country Club. We have, I think, in the order of things, wanted to complete that transaction with the filing of the deeds, and then whatever's going to be built there or undertaken can be done.
But my understanding, having gone through the meetings, been at the meetings, if we don't build something, or let's suggest an animal shelter, I'm not sure why that came at the subsequent meeting. If at some later date, the township, not you five, at some later date, Board of Education comes to the town and says, town, you own this piece of land. So that was the idea.
Right, right, that's why I said physically, because I remember the discussion
Two-part.
physically.
It's a two-part. But we need to, as this project starts, your legacy, I may not be living in that area, Sam may not be living in that area anymore, but it is potentially going to be a
Correct,
problem.
so the question is, do we put up a statue of Carrie Howler?
Self-powered pumping station, expand, something physical,
Yeah,
something,
something
I was
physical,
gonna
something
suggest you, but
Thank you.
in either case.
But yes, we have to put up something physical. I agree with you. And the
That-
question is whether or not it's going to be an animal shelter, that's, you know.
Property, just large corporation, I would be making a suit now in anticipation of knowing the value of my property goes up if I have access. And to the school, if you want to get to whatever school district the town decides if it's Hartshorn, it's coming. There's no question in my mind, and I've spoken to other property owners, real estate developers, that suit will come. It's just a question of when. They will sue. You're doing business, so let your attorney, you represent real estate people, find it out. They will sue to have that opened up. Beneficial use, safety, Kennedy Parkway floods, access out for residential. You can't build without having dry access. You have dry access out of the site, but you have dry access onto Kennedy Parkway, which floods. So the access out is going to be through the boat section. They will get that in a court of law if we don't put something there. That's opinion, lawyers' opinions. I just suggest that we look at it heartily, and it's not just the poets. I mean, the whole Short Hill, you know, the whole town would be at risk if navigation. Alex, Google will send you through an open street. Thank you.
Thank you. Any motions to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Adjourn. Oh, all in favor?